why the Scottish accent is the most difficult British accent. It is not just you, it is just that it is very strong. Okay, now to understand this, you need to really understand that some people will say, well, it's because you're not British, so you don't really understand. But it is not the case, and that is a fact. And it is proven by this video that was posted on YouTube about a Tory MP fails to understand Glaswegian accent of Scottish National Party, David Linden, and posted by Guardian News. So in this video, it shows you, just pay attention.
Done to make sure that this place is more accessible, particularly for some of our colleagues who have a disability.
Here, here.
I'm sorry. It must be something to do with my Antipodean background. Could you please repeat the question, because I didn't follow it?
Well, very popular today. I'm saying that a number of parliamentary colleagues who have disabilities do find it quite difficult getting around certain parts of the state. Given that we're doing this refurbishment work, what can be done to make sure that those with a disability are able to move around more freely and the place is accessible?
I'm really sorry.
So from
Please,
here, what you see is that we're not talking about slangs, because if you take, for example, you go to the Jamaican patois or the patois, English patois from other regions of the Commonwealth, you see that it is basically regional slangs which will be very difficult for you to understand if you're not native, even if you speak English, because basically they're using words that are not in the traditional sense of the English language. So that is why you have something called the received pronunciation, BBC English, Queen's English, all those formalized language or pronunciation. That is the way the language is supposed to be spoken. That's the reference, that's the standard. In Scotland, it is a bit different, and that is why in this case people were laughing. Basically, some people would understand, others could not understand, and that is probably why I think it is the most interesting example of why it is difficult, because even people from the UK, British people, sometimes find it very hard to understand the British accent. Some people say, oh, Brony accent from Birmingham and all these other places. I think that's got nothing to do with it. It's even more difficult up north, and there's a reason for that. You need to go back to what it was all about. So it says of dsl.ac.uk and scotslanguage.com said that the descendants of Germanic invaders who arrived in South Scotland in the 6th century, these invaders, including the Anglos, brought with them a form of Anglo-Saxon, which is known as the precursor to the English language. And if you're wondering what that is, basically, the Germanic language of the Anglo-Saxons is known as Old English. Today, the Anglo-Saxon language originated from the tribes of Anglo-Saxons and Jutes. The Anglo-Saxon dialects were known as Kentish, Mercian, West Saxon, and Northumbria, and all that. So it was a dominant language at the time, even in Scotland. But as time goes by, it seems the people in Scotland started to speak a more regional language, which is known as Gaelic. So you have Gaelic is a common but incorrect term for Irish and Scottish traditional languages, both of which are Celtic in origin from the Goidelic branch of the Indo-European family of languages. In Scotland, the correct term for the language is Gaelic. And then, so people started to speak Gaelic in Scotland, and it was interesting that up until the end of the 18th century, largely the entire population spoke Gaelic in Scotland, and during the 19th century the English language further dominated the area. So for so many centuries it was like, we're speaking Gaelic because that is what we do. But then, because there's been war between the Scottish and the larger tribes of England, and then they dominated. So once you dominate a country, you bring your culture, you bring your language to the area. And for centuries now, and then during the 19th century, they said, look, we need to start speaking English. And it's not because they wanted to, because a lot of people actually rejected that. But this is how it actually worked. It says in the 18th century, polite society now considered Scots as provincial and unrefined, and much of the gentry endeavored to rid itself of the former national language. So when they say, okay, posh people, aristocrats, royalty speak English and they speak it the way it's supposed to be. The polite society, basically upper class people, are saying if you speak Scottish, basically you're unrefined, you're just less than we are. So it became a class thing where a lot of people, a lot of Scots felt the need to start speaking English. And because of that, it becomes a problem because the stronger the original language, Gaelic, and most people, anyway, if you're learning a new language, unlike children learning a new language, if you're learning a new language, what happens is that you tend to speak the new language using the intonation of your original language. And that is why you have accents, or French accents, then you have Jamaican accents, even when they're speaking like the received pronunciation, the original accent, because it's just like singing, you sing with the new language with the accent of the old language. But the Scots, Gaelic, being a strong language, meant that a lot of people just basically transcribe it from the intonation of Gaelic into English. And that is why the accent is so strong. And why is it so strong is that even people from the United Kingdom find it very hard to understand them. And that, my friend, is a bit of history for you.